During the past month or so, I've seen many videos saying 2024 is the year to try Lord of the Rings Online. As someone who spent way too much time over the past 19 years playing World of Warcraft on the same shaman I've had since Classic, and countless hours mindlessly exploring Sky Shards and Elder Scrolls Online, Song of the Elves under my belt in old school RuneScape, and a moderate appreciation for Lord of the Rings, I thought, yeah, why not, let's try it. You know, I got a couple days before the War Within launches, so I spent about 5 hours in-game finishing the intro and prologue chapters to show the new player experience that one would encounter starting the game fresh with no add-ons or plugins. With this time frame in mind, if some of these points I make change throughout the game, just let me know in the comments, but please don't hit me with the "it gets better after the main quest," because according to Reddit that's about 300 in-game hours, or about a year, before the game actually gets better. Like any good MMO, we gotta start with character creation. So let's take a little gander at the races, their racial passives, and the classes. First up, we have Man, who gets a +5 to Fate and a -1 to Will, 5% bonus to incoming healing, and +1 to Might. Now from an outside perspective, I had zero idea what Fate or Will even was in terms of stats and how they affected the character, but at this point I was assuming it had something to do with spellcasting modifiers, and there's no way we can figure it out now, so I'll show you in-game when I found out, since, you know, new player experience and all. Next we have the High Elf, like Galadriel and Elrond. Their passives include a -1 to Will, a -2 to Fate, +4 to Morale, and a +0.72 non-combat Morale regen, and a +1 resistance to disease and poison. Again, no idea what morale is, or what a 0.72 regen is going to do. But overall, with these negatives to starting stats, doesn't seem very good to me. Next is the Dwarf, who has a +1 to Might and Vitality, and +1% to Common Mitigation. These are pretty standard terms, so it's safe to assume Might is like a Warriors class damage stat, and Vitality's health, while Mitigation just reduces the damage by 1%, but only common damage, not uncommon, rare, or epic damage. They also receive a -1 to Agility, which I'm going to assume is going to be like a Finesse melee class's damaging stat, kind of like a Rogue or a Ranger, as well as a -2 to Fate. They do, however, receive a bonus to in-combat morale and power gain, but regen slower outside of combat. Still no idea what these two attributes are at this time, but they can use axes, which have a small chance of reducing enemy armor. Next up is the Stout Dwarf, which is an unlockable race purchased from the in-game shop, which we will touch on shortly, don't you worry. They receive a +1 to Will and 1% Common Mitigation, 1% Shadow Mitigation, 1% Disease Resist, +1 to Might, and +1 to Agility, but a -1 to Vitality and -2 to Fate, but they can use one-handed axes as well. We also have the River Hobbit, another in-game shop race, which has a +1 to Agility, -1 to Will, +4 to Max Morale, +1 to Frost Mitigation, and can use daggers, which have an increased critical strike chance. The regular Hobbit's not too much different. They have a -1 to Might, +2 to Vitality, +0.72 to Morale regen, 1% Fear Resist, and 1% Shadow Mitigation. Next up is the regular elf, or the wood elf, however you want to call them. You know, the scummy ones who aren't descended from the elves of Valinor. They have a -2 to morale, and a -0.48 morale regen, a +1 to agility, -2 to fate, and 1% to disease and poison resistances. Lastly, we have the Bjorning, the skin changer who made an appearance in The Hobbit. This race receives +1 to might, -2 to fate, +1% to poison resist, and 1% to vitality. Now that I've rambled for way too long about the races, let's take a look at the classes available and try to guess what class goes best with what race. First on the list is the Bjorning, whose role is damage or support. They can turn into a bear or buff allies. The Burglar, who is also a support class that debuffs enemies with tricks. The Brawler, who is a DPS or tank class, but is, yet again, another in-game shop option. The Captain, a support class who buffs allies while dealing damage. The Champion, a raw melee DPS class. The Guardian, which looks cool as hell, is a tank. The Hunter, a ranged DPS option that uses a bow and arrow. The Lore Master, a spellcaster whose role is damage and support. They're basically the iconic wizard of Lord of the Rings. They can summon animals or cast spells. The Mariner, which is another melee damage and support class locked behind a paywall. The Minstrel, the only class that is locked to being a healer, much akin to a bard. The Runekeeper, who uses runes to deal damage or heal. And the Warden, our second tank option. Now obviously I'm gonna go with the man lore master for the animal companions, because I just want to be radagast with my sled of bunnies. Now to customize my own personal guy, we get to choose his origin area. Obviously, gotta go Rohan, because when the beacons are lit and Gondor calls for aid.
Rohan will answer.
Going through the character editor, I maxed out every slider while still trying to maintain an appearance close to myself, and this is the goofball we get. I also tried to name him Harry Pinecones, but apparently that's profane, so I just had to go with Pinecones, because hairy people in Middle-earth are gross or something, and we're ready to go. For this little section, I'm going to be touching on the quests and some of the mechanics of how the game plays. We first start the game by waking up in a cell, with the dashing Strider coming to our rescue. We follow him, and along the way we get some helpful tooltips on how to move and open our inventory and such. Opening the inventory opens our 3 tiny bags in an, in my opinion, odd section of the screen. So let's quick move them and continue with our fearless leader. But the next step of the quest is to actually fight Strider, and I didn't even read my spells or abilities, and he just starts swinging on me, so I try to read them while getting beat the fuck up by Aragorn of all people. My first spell does the damage over time, while reducing some of their mitigations. My second just swings my staff for frost damage, but apparently just my auto attack is enough to make him stop fighting, because before I could even cast a real spell, I beat him. But my third ability is Wizard Spark, which is just a straight up lightning bolt. I'm gonna pause real quick here. All of these spells are qualified as tactical skills, which I'm currently reading on the website and not from the game, cannot be blocked, evaded, or parried in any way, but mitigations can reduce the damage done. So I guess common mitigation is just auto attacks, while tactical mitigation would reduce ability damage done, I think. Once outside, Strider tasks us with saving 2 hobbits, which shouldn't be an issue now that I read my spells. Defeating the last one near Calendine, she tells us to go and save Mundo, the second hobbit. Mundo's guards are defeated super easy, and now our Brandybuck and Baggins are free, and we have to go back to Strider and Amdir. When we reach Amdir, he's fighting a Nazgul, and during this sort of cutscene I noticed something weird. If I'm targeting something, my camera automatically moves to the target. So while I'm trying to watch Amdir get rocked by a Morgul blade, the fucking Baggins is trying to steal all my attention. The Nazgul then comes for the hobbits, but the fire and Strider scare him off. Amdir passes out and Strider gets us out of the burning village, and we get a nice little summary in the loading screen, which I appreciated, but it was way too loud. I haven't altered the sound other than the Nazgul and Amdir fight for this video so far, so this is how loud it actually was compared to the game.
Wounded by a Black Rider, the Ranger Amdir escaped with his charges into the wild, making his way back to the village of Archet.
There, Captain Brackenbrook, a retired sellsword, has allowed Strider and his companions to stay and take respite from their cares.
Now out of the tutorial we land in Archet, a town in the Breelands, and we get a super helpful tooltip on how to combine bag space. We can edit them and drag and drop lines from bag 2 and 3 into bag 1 to make it appear as though it's just one big bag. Nearby, Miss Brandybuck has our next quest to see how Amdir is doing. We get another tooltip here about quest guiding, which is super helpful, but I'll discuss a caveat in that as the video progresses and we have a lot more quests being tracked. Speaking to Amdir prompts us to speak to Strider, which finishes the quest, giving us a shiny new piece of armor. Strider then wants us to speak with Captain Brackenbrook, try saying that name 10 times fast, about an upcoming invasion on Archet. When we speak to him, he wants us to speak to other people to see if they believe us, which, of course, none of them believe us because who even are we? When we return to Strider and finish the quest, we level up, and our task was speaking to our class trainer. We also gain a trait point, similar to a talent point in World of Warcraft. The Lore Master has 3 different specializations to choose from: Keeper of Animals, Master of Nature's Fury, or the Ancient Master. I'm not gonna lie here, I have zero idea which class fills what role at this point. I mean, I still don't know what morale or fate is, so I blindly picked the animal one because hell yeah, animal companion. Now to place my 1 trait point. I can increase pet morale, increase my sigil damage, or increase pet damage. I went with the pet damage instead of the sigil damage one because I want my pet to be the bestest. But the real reason here is because I'm fucking level 2. I don't know my left from my right in this game, and I have no idea what a sigil was or how much damage my bear does. To me, this is a huge drawback of the leveling and talent system. Throwing customizations and all these options before someone has a chance to even learn new spells or actually try the class out is a surefire way to overwhelm a new player. But now that I have a new animal companion, let's check this guy out. When I summon him, I realize the position of his nameplate on the interface isn't sparking joy at all, and his action bar is actually hidden behind the chat log. So let's check the options to see if we can move some stuff around. I type UI into the search bar to see all the options that involve the user interface, and the UI settings doesn't have anything. But at the very bottom of the key mapping tab, there's actually a button combo to hit to reposition the UI. So let's hit that, and holy shit, that's a lot of stuff scattered all in that corner, which a lot of it overlaps with other ones. This is a cluster. But I move the bear's health bar and action bar. Then I see that I can change the UI scale, which would probably be pretty nice because everything's pretty small in 1440p, but certainly this won't mess anything up, right? Right? Now the pet action bar is over my hotbar and the quests are on top of the map. But not to fret, brave warrior, for I know the keybind to reposition the UI. Before I embark on my journey, I gotta rename my bear, and the only option is to obviously name it Rigatoni. So now Pinecones and Rigatoni are ready to save the Bree lands by talking to our class trainer. Our first big boy important mission here is to strike the dummy with burning embers. Cuthbert says, well done, and to visit more often to learn spells. But as we progress, we actually just learn the spells automatically, which in my MMO opinion is a bittersweet move. Because I for one always enjoyed going back to town to learn the new moves, but I did not like spending the money to have to learn them. When we return to Strider, we're now tasked with gaining Captain Brackenbrook's trust. We do so by completing a quest for Corn on the Cob and gathering Kingsfoil for Amdir's wound. So we head off into the wild wonders of the land near the woods. On my way to Mr. Corn on the Cob, I decided to try to decipher what Fate, Will, and Morale are. So Might and Agility are mainly used for physical damage classes to increase their damage as well as parry and evasion ratings respectively, while Vitality increases morale. So morale is health. That's just an odd way to name health. And power is essentially your mana pool, dictating how many spells you can cast during an encounter. Will basically does the same thing as Agility and Might combined with some extra damage mitigation sprinkled in. And Fate increases maximum power. So as a spellcaster, it would appear that Fate and Will would be the best two stats to stack, to increase mitigations, tactical damage, and power. While I was checking this, another player came up and waved at me, but ran off before I could type /wave back. Once we make it to Caldercob, he wants us to go kill some wolves and search the area for the source of the wolves. This happens to be in the same area we need to get Kingsfoil. I will state here, the game is pretty decent with the locations of quests. A lot of them are clumped together so that you can bang out the main quest and a couple side quests all at the same time in the same area. From here on out, I'll be skipping the specifics of quests and just touching on the mechanics of them and other things I happen to encounter along the way to save some spoilers and your time. So opening the map, we can track the area of the quests we have. If we highlight the quest in the list on the left, it will begin to flicker its corresponding area on the map, which is neat, but later in the game became a huge confusion when the map is substantially bigger, with no zoom in, and around 10 quests all seemingly in the same area. Also, once a certain amount of quests are being tracked on the map, some colors have to be repeated. So there will be a few highlighted white, and the only way to tell what quest is what is to find it on the list on the left. Minor inconvenience, but just highlighting the area on the map would be much more user-friendly method of tracking, rather than scrolling through all the quests trying to find the one you're determined to finish. Especially since a lot of the quests are back and forth from town to an area again and again. Once I finish Corn on the Cob's quests, I hit level 3, which brings up a new tooltip for me, stating that I have to dismiss my pet for him to level up. Which makes 0 sense. Why can't he just level up with me? Because towards the end of this, I was roughly level 12 and my pet was like level 10 because I forgot to dismiss him. Not a huge deal, but just why? Why?
Why?
The second is a tooltip for the online store. So let's check out what's being offered. Right off the bat, as soon as I open it, the first thing being offered is 5 inventory slots. 5 whole slots for what would normally be 325 points, but are on sale for 244. Let's see how much money that would cost me. So 600 Lord of the Rings Online points are $8. So for $8, I can buy 10 inventory slots if they're on sale. Or spend $20 on the next larger point bundle to get 20 slots if they're not on sale. Now, as I progressed, this became a huge sore spot to me, because by level 10, my inventory was damn near full with random shit being awarded from leveling up and events and mail, and I couldn't find any vendors that sold extra bags. At this point, I was a little overwhelmed by all of this and extremely turned off by this predatory monetization. Once I was finished playing, I went back to check out the premium races and classes and how much they cost. It's a whopping 1,000 points each, so it would be $28 to unlock a Stout Dwarf Brawler. But there's also a VIP option for just $15 a month, with no details about what's even being offered through the in-game shop. Do I get all the races, expansions, classes, bonus points, bigger storage? Looking at you, Elder Scrolls Online. Going to the website to check it out, I see that we get 500 Lord of the Rings points per month. So 5 inventory slots a month, which is nothing. Nothing at all. But we do get extra inventory slots for it. We also receive faster crafting, priority login, 2 things that are baffling to have be a paid exclusive. Unlimited chat, which I didn't even know there was a chat limit because my character wasn't old enough when I tried to use chat. But let's compare what VIP, premium, and free players get. A pretty substantial difference to character slots and inventory. Purchasable rest experience bonuses, auctions, no extra classes or races, and a bunch of other things that hadn't even affected my experience yet, other than the few I listed. One way the game tries to combat this monetization is by implementing a thing called deeds. The first deed I received was to kill 30 spiders, for a whopping 5 whole points. I just want to reiterate that I did not play long enough to see if these deeds flesh out into anything actually worthwhile, but from my perspective, and probably that of a newcomer, to complete this deed roughly 65 times for 5 inventory spaces is just fucking crazy. That's nearly 2,000 spiders to kill just to hold 5 more items. Again, I didn't make it far into the game to see if maybe other deeds give more points, but this was a huge turnoff to me to have to grind countless deeds to get some things that are available from an in-game vendor in other games. Now, I did unlock other deeds as I progressed in the game, but they were also an absurd amount of things for very little in return. Like this one. I have to use my staff strike a certain amount of times to receive 5 points, or explore around these 2 different areas for 10 points each. Eventually down the line in questing, we do get a free mount with a whopping 32% increase to speed. Not too shabby, honestly. The mount has a health bar and can very easily be defeated by either 1 critical strike or roughly 3 hits. It's hard to tell since I would be hit for 8 damage, but the horse would take 30 damage, and then I just roll around on the ground like that dude from the G.I. Joe PSA. But after the quest progresses enough, the city and environment change, which is honestly a super cool touch to have an evolving landscape that progresses along with the story, and was just one of the better features of the game in my opinion. Now that I finished up the little starting area and began to venture out into the rest of the Breelands, I wanted to check out some fast travel. Maybe a teleport system or a little horsey to ride, since I had already made it to the next town for a previous quest. But oh, look at that! Also locked behind a payment of 2 mithril coins, which I can buy from the online store. 5 coins, or 2 travels, is 50 Lord of the Rings Online points. So either a good amount of deeds, or $8 for the cheapest bundle. There are also mounts available from the Mithril Trader. The mount I already received from the quest is 5 coins, while the next horse, which is roughly twice as fast, is 70 mithril. The next better mount is a goat, which is 6% faster than the 70 mithril horse, and has more than double the health, but is 150 mithril. At this point, I gave up looking for anything helpful and just decided to focus on questing, since if I wanted to grind something, I'd get a time machine and go back to 2007 and play MapleStory and kill 500 hogs per quest. So now that I'm free from the crushing weight of constantly thinking about the cash store, I'm free to quest. I get 8 quests in Colm that send me east. When I finish them, I get 2 more in the same area, and on until I finish the prologue quest. I had to make roughly 3 trips to the same area and do the slowest escort quest imaginable to man. Eventually, I did manage to finish the prologue and decided, you know what, I think I'm done with this game. It was moderately enjoyable, but it seemed like a huge grind fest outside of the main story to get anything of note accomplished for the character or my account, so I decided to give up and go play some 3D Stardew Valley and grind something else to make my house bigger. Now I know it might seem like I was bitching about the cash store a lot, but the fact that a new player sees these and feels the only way to progress or, I don't know, do just about anything is to spend an absurd amount of money is wild to me. It was moderately overwhelming, even for a seasoned MMO player, and the way the store made everything feel gives a sense of hopelessness that nothing is remotely achievable without spending money on the in-game shop or spending countless hours killing spiders and bandits. The graphics are a little dated, the talent system is overwhelming to a newcomer, and the cash store is just predatory. If it did away with the whole cash store, made the game $30 to own instead of $130 for a expansion pack, and made 75% of the cash store available from vendors to purchase with gold from quests and looting, it would be much more enjoyable. This game is definitely more about the journey than the race to endgame content, like with World of Warcraft, where the story really unfolds in raids. So I did appreciate that, but with so much going on, overwhelming information and very little explanation or very little guidance about in-game alternatives to cash store items, it almost feels hopeless to see that you have to grind for weeks to get 5 inventory slots. Again, this is my opinion, but I'm not trying to spend a year grinding a game, and I feel that new players should know what they are getting themselves into. If that's something you enjoy, you would love this game. So, overall, I award this game 3 Hobbits in the Bowels of Mount Doom out of 10. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to drop a like and sub, and stick around for some more game reviews, because that's what we do here. If you want to help support the channel, be sure to check out the Patreon. We've got some pictures of the kitties up there. You can help support them, get them some treats and whatnot. But until next time, you guys take care of yourselves.